Hi everyone, welcome to Unit 4 on our environment through maps, Part 1. By the end of the lesson, let's be able to describe the different kinds of maps, describe the uses of maps, and learn how to read latitudes and longitudes. As we progress through the lesson, I would like you to consider these two questions. 1. What are maps? 2. How are maps useful to us? What are maps? Maps are essentially diagrammatic or graphical representations of the Earth's surface that show how human and physical features are related to one another in terms of distance, directions, and size. Questions. When and where did you last use a map? Why did you use it? How did it look like? I would like you to pause here and consider these questions. Good. Let's move on. Consider this artifact. This is a Babylonian world map. The ancient city of Babylon was once a great civilization during the early centuries, and this artifact represents a world map used by the Babylonians. This map here shows a reconstructed version of the same map that we've seen earlier. It shows Babylon in the center and 7 arrows pointing upwards to 7 places, and the distance between those places and Babylon. Is this a good map in your view? We can also consider Hecataeus' view of the world during the same period. Here, Hecataeus pieced together Europe, Libya, and Asia. However, there are some missing continents. Can you name them? And as we move to the Middle Ages, we start to see more sophisticated maps. One notable example is the Da Ming Hunyi Tu world map made in 1389, made by the Chinese during the Ming Dynasty. Can you recognize the countries on this map? Finally, as we move into the age of discovery, we have a world map that looks very much like the modern maps that we know today, like Abraham Ortelius's world map, made in 1570. And here, we have a modern map. Compare the two maps. Do you notice more similarities than differences? Let's do a short comparison. Right. Of course, other than world maps, we have other kinds of maps. For example, we have a political map. A political map shows us the countries of the world, their names, boundaries, capitals, and major cities. Here, we have a political map of Southeast Asia. Then we have a climate map. Climate maps gives us information about the climate. Here, we have a climate map of Singapore that tells us the amount of rainfall that different parts of Singapore receives. Which area of Singapore is the wettest? We can also have a resource or economic map that feature the type of natural resources or economic activity that dominates an area. Then we have a physical map that shows physical features such as mountains, hills, lakes, and rivers of an area. Notice that this map makes use of colors to represent height differences. Of course, we have the trusted road map, which has since become interactive and accessible on mobile devices. So why are maps useful to us? Maps are useful as they give us the location or position of places and features. They are useful as they help us in analyzing and forecasting weather conditions. They also help us to plan settlements, help us to navigate by land, sea, and air. And lastly, help us to detect changes to the landscapes over time. Next, let's focus on reading the world. And to do that, you will have to know about latitudes and longitudes. Notice how the world map is dissected by horizontal and vertical lines. These are latitudes and longitudes. Latitudes are imaginary horizontal lines parallel to one another that encircle the Earth's surface in an east-west direction. As compared to longitudes, they are imaginary vertical lines that encircle the Earth's surface in a north-south direction. You will have to know how to recognize the latitudes and the longitudes from world maps. The latitude that divides the Earth into halves is the equator, also known as 0 degrees latitude. Latitudes in the northern hemisphere are marked as north, while those in the south are marked as south. Notice 30 degrees north and 30 degrees south. As you can see here, the Tropic of Cancer is marked 23.5 degrees north. Similarly, the Tropic of Capricorn is marked 23.5 degrees south. Then of course, you have the Arctic Circle at 66.5 degrees north and the Antarctic Circle at 66.5 degrees south. For longitudes, as discussed, longitudes are imaginary vertical lines that encircle the Earth's surface in the north-south direction. Notice how the longitudes runs from north to the south. The 0 degrees longitude is known as the Greenwich or the prime meridian, which is here. Similar to the latitudes, the longitudes east of the Greenwich meridian are marked east, whereas those along the west are marked as west. 180 degrees east and west is known as the international date line, which we will discuss next lesson. Now let's do a short assessment. Are you able to use your newly acquired knowledge on latitudes and longitudes to mark the Asian cities shown here? Note, you should always read the latitude first before the longitude. For example, Singapore is 1 degrees north and 103 degrees east. That will give our location to your friends overseas. Self-check. Are you able to describe the different kinds of maps, describe the uses of maps, and read latitudes and longitudes? I'm sure you can. I'll see you next time.